Peace. This is Waz for Waz Words Media, back at y'all for another round. And the hottest topic in boxing continues to be the pay-per-view fight that went down between the undisputed champion, Devin the Dream Haney, versus Vasily High-Tech the Matrix Lomachenko. And there's a big population that feel that Devin Haney rightfully won that fight. There's another big population that feels Lomachenko was robbed and he deserved to win that fight. And then there's a population like, the one that I belong to that feel like this was a draw. I don't feel there was too many rounds. There was too many swing rounds, meaning that you could score it either way. So I feel like there wasn't too many dominant rounds for me to have a clear-cut winner. So with that established, I'm hearing this theory floating around that because Lomachenko gave Devin Haney such a hard fight, that if Haney was to fight Tank Davis, then that's it. Devin Haney has no chance. Tank Davis wins automatically. He's going to knock him out. And to that I say, fight fans, pump your brakes. That's not how boxing goes. Boxing doesn't work that way. You see, when it comes to boxing, there's an age-old saying that goes, styles make fights, right? One person's style might be very difficult for one fighter, but meanwhile, another fighter's style and their technique may be tailor-fit for that person, and they'll have a better chance against that person. So, case in point, one of, if not my favorite example of styles make fights is the history between Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, and George Foreman. Muhammad Ali took on Joe Frazier in what was the super fight of that day. That fight was the Mayweather-Pacquiao, the Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford of that day in the 70s. Huge fight between Ali and Frazier. Both undefeated, took place in Madison Square Garden. Joe Frazier ends up winning that fight. So now he gives Muhammad Ali his first loss. Joe Frazier wins the fight. Joe Frazier ends up taking on Big George Foreman. George Foreman completely annihilates Joe Frazier. Completely annihilates him. I mean, to the point I can't even watch that fight because Joe Frazier is one of my favorite heavyweights of all time. Probably my favorite. So I can't watch that fight. I can't watch that fight because that's how bad George Foreman annihilates Joe Frazier. So now, if Frazier beat Ali and Foreman beat Frazier, then that means automatically Foreman beats Ali, right? Wrong. That's not how boxing goes. Again, styles make fights. Muhammad Ali goes on to take on George Foreman, the Rumble in the Jungle, and he knocks out George Foreman. The same guy who knocked out Joe Frazier, who just beat Ali. So you see, you can't mix those together. Just because of the outcome of one fighter versus another is not going to determine a separate other fighter against this fighter. It doesn't work that way. And just because Lomachenko had some success hitting Devin Haney, getting to Devin Haney, doesn't mean Tank is going to have the same amount of success. You just can't equate the two just because of what happened in one fight. Like Joe Frazier, he's one of my favorite heavyweights because I used to watch him a lot before sparring. because Joe Frazier was often smaller than his opponents, and he used great head movement. He had great head movement. I emulated that in the ring. He had great head movement. He would take his head off the center line always, and it made it hard for Ali to hit him. And then as he's coming off the center line, as he's coming back up, he catch you with a left hook. He was famous for his left hooks, Joe Frazier. So that style was harder for Ali than a George Foreman that stands in front of you and tries to be physically imposing and just tries to just overwhelm you with power. That style was more difficult than the more powerful style of George Foreman. So with Devin Haney and Lomachenko's style is difficult because Lomachenko uses a lot of feints. He feints and he makes it seem like he's gonna go low, but then he pops up and hits you with the head. Makes it look like he's going to the head, but he goes low. And then he makes you think he's gonna come straight in, but then he'll hit you with one of them swerving pivots and throws a combination off the pivot. And another thing that Lomachenko does that is genius of him is that he'll wait till you throw a punch, and then he'll come with an angle. So he not only makes you miss, but he angles himself off your miss and then attacks. So that right there, a lot of fighters don't do that. Tank Davis doesn't do that. Tank Davis is a master at countering and knowing your nuisances. But Lomachenko wasn't the counter type. He wasn't the one that's just gonna stand there and wait to pick you off with one great shot. Lomachenko was more of trying to get in, asserting that. Tank Davis, he tries to get in, but he also, if you're just too big for him, because Tank Davis is a small guy, if you're just too big for him, Tank just reads you, processes the information, and then he sees when he could come in. And Devin Haney has one of the best jabs in boxing. I don't know why he didn't use it, but he has a great 1-2. And if he uses that against Tank Davis, who's to say Tank Davis could get in to knock out Devin Haney? Who's to say who's to say he's automatically gonna get in? Let's say if Devin Haney just abandons the going to the body game plan that he used against Lomachenko. Let's say he abandons that and he sticks to just throwing his jabs, making it a jab fest. 1-2, jab, 1-2, left hook. Like, if he turns it into that type of fight, who's to say that Tank is going to automatically get in to knock out Dev? You can't conclude what a whole separate another fighter is going to bring to the table against another fighter just based off a performance he had with a different fighter. Boxing don't work that way. It just don't. So I still think that is going to be a fascinating fight. I'll be super excited if it gets signed. Tank versus Devin. And, you know, maybe these type of performances where somebody looked like, oh, you know, he got touched more than we're used to seeing, that kind of like, those things are good for boxing sometimes because it propels certain fights that you probably wouldn't have seen for a while because people are still trying to crack the code. But then all of a sudden people start jumping up like, oh yeah, I think I got him now. Oh yeah, I want that fight now because they see vulnerability or what they perceive as vulnerability. So yeah, man, that's just my take on it. I don't think one fight has anything to do with the other. In fact, I think Devin Haney, sticking to the original Devin Haney fighting style of a healthy amount of jabs and 1-2s and left hooks, I think that, and abandoning going to the body, I think that will be a very, very good recipe of success if he was to take on Tank because of his length, and he's naturally bigger than Tank. But fight fans, let me know what y'all think. And let's build. Peace.